Welcome to this session on next-gen security for the next-gen telco. I'm Samantha Kight, the Head of Industry Security at the GSMA, and it's an honour to be with you here at the M360 in LATAM. During this session, we'll be looking at how we can best be securing the ecosystem. We'll be having a couple of presentations and then hearing from our panel of experts. But before that, I'd like to give you all a view of the state of the industry, providing a global picture and taking a view of Latin America. So let's start with a number. 42.5 billion is predicted loss from fraud and security breaches in 2025. Now the good news. New security measures will become more widely used. This will help decrease to 34 billion euros in 2028. So what are the GSMA doing? For us, we're trying to secure our mobile ecosystem, and we do this in three main ways. We provide value to our membership in three main areas. The first of this is industry collaboration. We do this by convening the membership to define specifications and baseline controls to ensure industry alignment. We also provide expertise through subject matter experts, as well as promoting fraud and security awareness. And lastly, we look to securing the future, assessing, analysing and reporting on the threat landscape, engaging with standards bodies and reviewing new technologies such as AI and post-quantum. So every year, we produce our Global Mobile Security Threat Landscape Report. This is in its 6th edition. It covers threats impacting the industry from supply chain to global title abuse, mobile app security, spyware, and ransomware attacks. It also looks at new and repackaged fraud, mobile network operator attacks on cloud and virtualized infrastructure, which we are seeing a rise in. So do take a look at that report. For me, the technical security, we need to take a step back and think about security strategy. Globally, this is what we're seeing as the challenges of our time. We know mobile networks need to be robust and secure and reliable. However, we know that the security requirements are at risk of fragmentation. We need to develop initiatives which reduce complexity and improve security. So this brings me to our mobile cybersecurity knowledge base. It's a toolbox for the work carried out by the industry in the GSMA to address security challenges of the ecosystem and increase trust in networks. It utilises documents, programs, industry services to identify a range of mobile security risks and help define the appropriate mitigation measures. It also aims to increase trust in mobile networks to make the more interconnected world as secure as possible. Along with the changing landscape, we regularly enhance and extend this knowledge base to respond. So within the GSMA, I'm going to come to another report now. We have the GSMA intelligence team. They are a group of experts in the research space, and they have developed a report outlining a telco security landscape and strategies specific for Latin America. So I have the pleasure of bringing this to you today and giving you a first look at the report and how it's structured. So the research approach. This is the first report in 5 parts. We hope to do this in other regions. And it looks at security innovations in the telecoms industry. It gives a view on a common set of metrics to assess readiness in order to evaluate the threat landscape, track changes, as well as discuss best practices. In Latin America, nearly all the telecoms operators view mobile networks as operating in a high-risk environment. So let's take a look at this landscape. We see on the left the security attack surfaces, from mobile networks to IoT, where with over 2.5 billion cellular IoT connections by 2030, we know that the threat is rising, and there's no doubt that the threat landscape is widening. On the right, it looks at the threat vectors, some impacting all businesses, so IT, ransomware, supply chain, and then some as well more specific to the telco industry. But what are the top threats? The Latin American operators also have a strong confidence in the strength of mobile network defenses, with 75% rating them as strong or very strong. This is on par with the global average. Taking a view of these top 3 threats, we see ransomware and phishing as the top 2, and signaling and interconnect level attacks slightly lower down the list, but it's still concerning. We see with these threats the rise over the next 3 years, although it appears to be more manageable due to security requirements and improvements being deployed into networks. 94% of operators still believe the threat from phishing is higher in the next 3 years, so we're still seeing that there's more work to be done. The situation is less certain for other categories. The potential for attacks on the supply chain, there's a reasonable degree of readiness, although 31% are claiming they're not, 45% are saying they are. Attacks on virtualized infrastructure and human threats, and those via signaling as viewed as even greater threats. To some extent, these net risks, which reflects the operators, they do not fully control all levels of the technology stack. However, this does not exonerate operators from the responsibility to protect or the exposure that could lead to reputational damage that could stem from a breach of partner infrastructure. Given that the effects of a breach impact all stakeholders, the challenge is to coordinate with suppliers on common approaches and strategies, and to monitor and to respond to any attacks. Looking at future security, the report shows some interventions available in Latin America to improve their network security. More than 40% of operators view the secure by design approach as having had the greatest impact and the robustness over the last 3 years. This has relied on implementing new standards and security controls through all facets of product design, manufacture, and operation. Looking ahead at the next 3 years, the more widely held view is that organizational culture and threat intelligence sharing are the top priorities to ensure mobile networks and related infrastructure are robust and resilient. The evolving cyber threat landscape in Latin America presents a complex mix of challenges with the region's diverse economic, social, political contexts. The cyber threats vary widely. Challenges such as uneven IT and telecoms infrastructure, sometimes incomplete cybersecurity awareness, and economic inequalities exacerbate the vulnerabilities. Operators can take several measures to counter such disruptive cyber attacks in LATAM, such as those listed above: segregation, configuration hardening, technology complexity, reducing that from email protection and secure access. The security interventions should all be viewed holistically rather than actions carried out in isolation. The key here is prevention and investing in upgrades to preempt risks across various telco asset portfolios. By working together, we can build a safer, more secure network for the future. Hopefully that's given you a good introduction to where we sit globally and at the regional level. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Please join me in welcoming Jesus Frederico, Principal Solutions Architect at AWS.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Muchísimas gracias, Samantha. Bueno, muchísimas gracias por la invitación. Muchísimas gracias, GSMA. El día de hoy vamos a comentar un poquito sobre cómo estamos viendo el panorama de seguridad desde el punto de vista de AWS. Mi nombre es Jesus Federico, soy Principal Solution Architect y actúo como Principal Advisor para las telcos en Latinoamérica. Cuando hablamos de algunos datos complementando el estudio que hizo GSMA, en general para el año 2023, según un estudio de Gartner, cada brecha en industria ocasiona una pérdida de 4.45 millones de dólares en industrias en general. 91% de las encuestas de las industrias que se han consultado de las organizaciones han indicado que han sufrido ataques o han sido target de ataques de incidentes de seguridad, de las cuales 56% han sufrido consecuencias graves de ataques prolongados en incidentes de ciberseguridad. Ya como hemos visto en la jornada del día de hoy, la infraestructura de telecomunicaciones es una infraestructura crítica para el desarrollo de las naciones. Es por lo cual que el 70% de los boards está el tema de ciberseguridad en la mesa de conversación. Adicionalmente, con la evolución y la simplicidad que tenemos ahora para poder generar nuevos vectores de ataques, el acceso a inteligencia artificial generativa, le da mayor potencia, muchísimo más el vector de ataque que podemos tener. Y del lado de las industrias de telecomunicaciones, las telcos son un gran target. Se estima por un estudio de Lumen que 1/3 de los ataques de denegación de servicios distribuidos son con target hacia las empresas de telecomunicaciones. Esto impacta, del cual hablamos que la industria de la telco, por un tema de superficie, de infraestructura, distribución, inclusive algunas funcionalidades como el Bring Your Own Device en las empresas de telecomunicaciones son un target mayor de ataque. 56% de los mayores incidentes de seguridad, de los últimos 500 incidentes de seguridad, fueron lanzados en el año 2021 hacia las telcos. Y se estima que desde el punto de vista de crecimiento del mercado de ciberseguridad va a crecer año contra año hasta el 2030 de un 12.1% para la industria de telecomunicaciones. ¿Y qué es lo que estamos escuchando nosotros desde el punto de vista de telco siendo un proveedor de infraestructura? ¿Qué es lo que buscan las telcos? Tener mayor visibilidad, control, poder detectar qué está sucediendo y actuar de manera rápida. Es por eso que nosotros vemos la data del cliente como contenido confidencial. Y hablamos de datos del cliente como todo el software, el sistema operativo, infraestructura, data que coloca sobre las máquinas virtuales, entre otros. Y vemos como información de clasificación de la información de la cuenta, la información que usa un cliente para crear una cuenta en la infraestructura AWS. Le damos la posibilidad de elegir cuál es la región donde va a almacenar los datos. Nosotros no tenemos acceso, sino el cliente, las telcos en este caso, tienen la posibilidad de elegir cuál es la región donde van a residir sus datos. Y AWS no mueve ni tiene acceso a los datos. Adicionalmente, para nosotros la seguridad es un pilar fundamental, es Job Zero, lo denominamos. Desde el punto de vista de diseño, todos los servicios cuando los diseñamos tenemos la seguridad desde el punto de vista fundamental. Nosotros, como les comentaba, no tenemos acceso a la información, tenemos una serie de recursos que le damos acceso para que ustedes puedan ver la clasificación y todos los temas de compliance que siguen en nuestra infraestructura y los pueden descargar para sus auditorías. Desde el punto de vista de modelo, trabajamos con un modelo que se llama modelo de responsabilidad compartida. Nosotros proveemos infraestructura, somos un hyperscaler de proveer infraestructura, pero hay una responsabilidad del lado del cliente y una responsabilidad del lado del proveedor. En el caso de la infraestructura, nosotros somos el dueño y los responsables del hardware donde operan, hasta el punto de vista del hipervisor, todo lo que está clasificado de color naranja. Somos el dueño de las regiones, zonas de disponibilidad, todo lo que da soporte al cómputo, el almacenamiento, las bases de datos, toda la infraestructura de redes que da soporte. Y es responsabilidad del cliente lo que se implementa en el cloud. Es responsable del cliente activar los features de seguridad, utilizar criptografía, mantener los sistemas operativos con los parches adecuados, entre otros. Cuando hablamos de lo que es la responsabilidad compartida en una industria regulada, como es la industria de telecomunicaciones, como puede ser la industria financiera, sabemos que necesariamente no solo por el hecho de tener este marco de seguridad compartida en una expectativa de una industria regulada, hay unas expectativas mayores sobre qué podemos hacer y qué no podemos hacer. Para poder hacer esto, lo que hay que definir es una especie de círculo virtuoso donde lo primero que se debe hacer para implementar las cargas es definir una estrategia cloud. ¿Qué es lo que estamos permitiendo? ¿Qué lo permite la regulación para la empresa de telecomunicaciones en un país particular? Y implementar esa estrategia. Una vez que definimos la estrategia, necesitamos implementar un governance sobre la estrategia. Es forzar a la que nuestra estrategia sea implementada. Por ejemplo, en el caso de una compañía que no pueda colocar data, por ejemplo, en una región en Brasil, que opera en otro país y no tiene convenios, por ejemplo, con Brasil, no forzamos a que no se pueda colocar. Así sucesivamente para cualquier país donde tenemos nuestra infraestructura. Y desde el punto de vista, entrando más al pilar del centro, cuando vamos a diseñar los workloads y las aplicaciones que vamos a implementar en el cloud, tenemos que definir el modelo operacional y la arquitectura sea correcta basada en los principios de diseño de AWS en un framework que nosotros tenemos público que se llama el Well Architected Framework. Finalmente, hasta llegar al tema de la infraestructura. Una vez que nosotros tenemos y seguimos este ciclo, empieza un círculo virtuoso donde las nuevas cargas de trabajo salen de manera segura, cumplen los objetivos del negocio que estamos esperando de manera segura y ganamos nueva experiencia para poder seguir subiendo nuevas cargas. Hablando un poco ahora desde el punto de vista de la seguridad del cloud. ¿Qué es el cloud? Partamos un poco de por qué los clientes terminan eligiendo una infraestructura, por ejemplo, como en el caso de AWS. Lo primero que podemos ver es que heredamos todos los estándares de seguridad que cumplen la infraestructura. Tenemos más de 143 estándares de seguridad, como pueden ser PCI DSS, HIPAA, ISO 27001, entre otros, ya vamos a ver más adelante. Tienes una visibilidad mayor, los clientes al implementar en cloud pueden tener una visibilidad mayor de los recursos que están implementando, pueden automatizar acciones y una vez que tienes la visibilidad completa puedes seguir y automatizar y minimizar el riesgo. Nuestra infraestructura está dividida en algo que se llama regiones, que es la ubicación geográfica donde tenemos nuestra data center. Adentro componen zonas de disponibilidad que son data centers aislados y cada zona de disponibilidad está compuesta con un conjunto de data center. Hoy tenemos con 33 regiones, tenemos una anunciada en México que estaremos liberando para este año. Y si vemos internamente qué es dentro de un data center, nosotros el año 2012 empezamos a desarrollar nuestro propio hipervisor. Estábamos basados en un hipervisor open source que se llamaba Zen. En el año 2015 adquirimos una compañía que se llama Anapurna Labs, que es de desarrollo de hardware, y empezamos a crear nuestros propios chipsets. Y para el año 2017 lanzamos nuestro propio hipervisor que se llama Nitro. ¿Qué es lo que hace Nitro? Es una separación física de las capas de seguridad. Introduce una capa de seguridad física para que nos permita hacer la validación del firmware, no hay alteración del firmware a nivel de las máquinas, y separa en canales de hardware, en tarjetas independientes, todo el canal de almacenamiento y el canal de la red. Esto aunado a que hoy hay una tendencia también de expandir el cloud y llevarlo hacia el edge. Entonces, hay un servicio que nuestros clientes pueden colocar la misma infraestructura que cuentan las regiones directamente en las premisas y el hipervisor que está por encima de Nitro tiene las tarjetas, un security key que cuando lo desconectan toda la data que estaba dentro no puede ser accedida por AWS. Como les comentaba, la infraestructura de por sí cumple más de 143 estándares de seguridad. Lo que hacemos nosotros es disponibilizamos los reportes de seguridad para que sus auditores puedan hacer la validación y desde el punto de vista de la infraestructura nosotros la disponibilizamos. Hay un ejemplo con el caso de Vodafone en Italia, donde hace el desarrollo de una aplicación de pagos de top-ups utilizando loginless. Y ellos implementaron esta aplicación en 3 meses y ahorrándose un 30% del costo del CAPEX. Finalmente, desde el punto de vista de seguridad, nosotros tenemos múltiples servicios, están divididos en varios pilares. Los pilares lo podemos ver como toda la parte de acceso, la parte de detección, protección de infraestructura, protección de datos y respuestas a incidentes. El gol, finalmente, de que vemos en las telcos, y tenemos un caso en Latinoamérica, que ellos quieren automatizar y reducir el riesgo. Si yo detecto y tengo visibilidad y control de la infraestructura que tengo, puedo automatizar la remediación y notificar en el caso inmediato. Necesito saber quién, cuándo y qué fue lo que modificó. Quiero cerrar con un caso de una compañía, una empresa de telecomunicaciones en Latinoamérica, Liberty Latinoamérica. Ellos hicieron un framework de seguridad basado en toda la infraestructura que tienen sobre AWS. Es un caso público, ellos tienen inclusive parte del charging system, lo tienen implementado sobre AWS, cubriendo la operación de Puerto Rico. Y ellos lo que hacen es, con toda la infraestructura que tienen sobre AWS, cuando se detecta algún incidente de seguridad, automáticamente conocen quién fue la cuenta o el workload que está afectado, notifican a la persona o al equipo que implementó ese workload, considerando que en las telcos generalmente la implementación de los workloads es desde múltiples vendors, tienes muchos accesos de muchas personas tocando la infraestructura y le notifican a la persona correcta, y han logrado una disminución del 90% en el tiempo de respuesta a los incidentes de seguridad. Y la evolución de esto es que finalmente cuando toman el incidente de seguridad utilizando inteligencia artificial generativa, generan un pequeño informe que sea más leíble para los usuarios y les manda qué es lo que está pasando y el posible comando para hacer la resolución del problema. Bueno, esto es todo. Muchísimas gracias. Cualquier pregunta o adicional, estaré por acá.
Oh. Okay, we're going to have the panel now. So if I invite my panelists up, you can join me. Yes, please join me in welcoming them. Thank you. Great, so we're going to discuss some of the things we've been hearing about now. What we will start by doing is maybe doing introductions. If you can introduce yourself and your organisation, a bit about your role. Colm, would you like to go first?
Start here.
Yes.
This is the first panel in English, I think, so apologies for that. My name is Colm Murphy. I'm a senior cybersecurity advisor with Huawei's Global Cybersecurity and Privacy Office. I'm based in our Cybersecurity Transparency Centre in Brussels. Maybe just very quickly to explain what that is, that's a centre where we facilitate anybody, really our customers and others, to test and validate our products actually to source code level. And we run several of those projects in that centre. We also run technical workshops on very specific cybersecurity challenges. We bring customers and other members of actually the global ecosystem. Although we're in Brussels, we have global visitors, and I'm based there. I'll just say I say it's the only centre outside of HQ that allows access to our source code in this way. Before the end of this year, we will open a centre in Panama here in Latin America, so you're all very welcome to pay us a visit there. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay.
Marcos?
Hi, I'm Marcos Polanco. I'm cybersecurity pre-sales director and special services. We are part of Telmex and also part of América Móvil. We are the cybersecurity company for the group. My job is defining all the solution and technical solution for the customers, also for the group. And part of my teams are responsible for incident response, cyber intelligence, all the innovation regarding evaluating security technologies and also defining new services for our customers. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, thank you for allowing me to participate in this amazing session, amazing panel. My name is Juan Carlos Gomez. I'm the Global Chief Digital Security Officer of Telefónica. That's mean responsibility in information security and cyber defense in Telefónica Group. I have been working in Telefónica for a long time, and previously I was working in British Telecom and so on, internet service provider. For better or worse, I have been working in security for 28 years, and the only thing I'm pretty sure I can say is I'm learning every day. So thank you.
Rebecca?
Okay, I am Rebecca Escobar. I am the head of the research center at the IFT, the Instituto Federal of Telecommunications. And, well, as expected, at the research center, we do studies, we investigate, we make reports, we follow the tendencies of the markets and the new technologies. From the Center of Research, we also coordinate a committee that makes studies. We coordinate the industry. This committee is integrated by operators, and they do different studies to collaborate with the prosecution authorities. I have been in the Instituto for 9 years, but I have been in the industry for quite a little bit more. And I'm an expert in competition. I worked before in the Commission of Competition. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be talking today about a very important topic, which is cybersecurity.
Great, thank you. So as you can see, we have quite good representation from across the ecosystem and security. We've had, I guess, a lot of examples of the security threats out there facing mobile network operators. Juan Carlos, I just wanted to ask, is this what you're seeing globally and also regionally for LATAM?
Thank you, Shan. It's not an easy question. I think that from a point of view, LATAM is exposed to the same threats and has the main challenge of other regions. But to answer the question, from a point of view, there are maybe 2 points to bear in mind. Digital fraud and regulation. Digital fraud, my feeling is that there are 2 threats LATAM region is more exposed to. The first one is human threats. I mean, people, employees working in coordination with fraud network or with fraudsters. And supply chain security in the term of dealers or IT outsourcing providers with access to databases of users where they can activate new services or they can sell the information to others. No? And in second point is regulation. My point of view is that regulation in Latin region is not as developed as in other regions like Europe or the States. And good regulation always help and improve some things. For example, regulation can improve the incident response capabilities in a coordination in the region. That's important to face the new threats of the future. And the security of the network, like the NIS Network Information Security Directive in Europe, the one, the two directive. And critical infrastructure, regulation about critical infrastructure, or regulation about hardware and software certifications, or regulation which improves the private and public collaboration. This is, I think, the main points of challenge in the region.
And Marcos, what sort of capabilities do you think are required to address some of these challenges?
Okay. I think that the first one, as you mentioned for me, is security by design. It's thinking on security when the network is building or constructing or having a new layout or new version. And also, I think that very important for me capability that we should have is security operation in terms of 4 verbs. Oh, I define it in 4 verbs. See, understand, identify, and act. Having all the visibility possible from the network, that is really a great challenge. Then knowing which means or which message, what means each message, and identifying which of those messages are really indicator of anomaly of a situation that should be act upon. And the last one is act, which means investigate, means respond, or also may mean fix or improve the network. So I think that's a very key capability that I see. And something else that I want to add is thinking not only in cybersecurity, but also above that, cyber resilience, which is probably the more advanced and the more complete vision that we should have based on cybersecurity also view as a pillar.
Yeah. Easy job then. Rebecca, I know Juan Carlos mentioned regulation. Being the regulator here, what do you see is needed for more cooperation between the regulators and the ecosystem?
About that, I see that cybersecurity involves a wide range of actors. And so it is essential to work together to strengthen and exchange information, which is very important, to tackle the risks and to establish better practices. So we see that there are different levels of collaboration. One was already mentioned. I think there are international collaboration, which is very important because of the nature of the risks. There's also collaboration between public, federal organizations and entities. There is collaboration in different levels of government. And then the one already mentioned, the public and private partnership, which is basic to create standards and best practices. And there, of course, is a collaboration between private parties. I have to say that IFT has carried out many actions to coordinate in the way according to our powers with several public entities. The Institute has different agreements of collaboration with, for example, with INAE, that's the institute that follows the access of information and protection of private data. And then we have also agreements with academic institutions such as the Instituto Politécnico, who carries out different studies and investigation. And I have to say, I would like to share today that the IFT has created a technical committee of 5G deployment. And this is a technical advisory body in which different parties, the industry, different entities from the government, participate and share information about their specific needs, their strategies, their point of view. And well, I think this committee is an example of the collaboration that should be carried out in order to tackle cyber security threats. And specifically in cybersecurity, there's a table who is working on carrying on studies and to issue recommendations. And then if I have 1 minute, I would talk about international collaboration, which is, from our point of view, also very important. As I was saying, because of the nature of the threats, we are not border constrained. And there, I think that authorities and regulators, like the IFT, should continue collaborating, cooperating, and participating in order to hear from the experiences from other member countries. And as Samantha just presented a knowledge base, there are other knowledge bases which are also for states, for example, not for the industry. But I would talk, for example, of the participation of the IFT of the Instituto at the ITU, who launched a global cybersecurity agenda, which is a framework for international cooperation aimed to improve trust and security. And well, the participation of regulators in this kind of exercises is very important, and I think it aims to enhance cybersecurity.
That's great. I think something that we see quite often is the need for the policymakers and the technologists really to come together and experts. So it's great to see that that's something that you're working with. Now, the vendors play quite an important role, Colin. What can you tell us about what Huawei are doing in this space in terms of supporting the ecosystem?
Well, Yeah, to give you a little bit of perspective from the vendor side in terms of what we're doing to try to help our customers deal with this challenge, because really they're dealing with this in the front line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and what we need to support them, and that's our primary responsibility. So to do that, first and foremost, we have to put products into the market that are secure and resilient. And to do that, to echo what Marcus said, that means that we have to build security into the product development lifecycle from the very, very beginning. That means paying great attention to what you know is called the software development lifecycle. And that means we hope that we're doing secure by design and secure by default. We've paid a great deal of attention to that in Huawei. But we can do more than that, actually. So there's one thing about putting products into the market that are secure and resilient. We can do more to support our customers. For example, vulnerability management is a key issue because, as you all know, over time, vulnerabilities will arise in products. Therefore, we have kind of two roles. We carry out roles via what we call our Vulnerability Management Center, and in that we have our Product Security Incident Response team. And they've got two roles. One is to look out, on the one hand, to essentially identify quickly vulnerabilities in the components that we use in our products. And that includes, by the way, open source components. And we do that in a number of ways. We obviously monitor, we have threat intelligence channels, we run bug bounty programs, and we have researchers out there looking for vulnerabilities in our products. That's one on the one hand. On the other hand, we have to build bridges to our customers' certs so that we can inform them very quickly. So that's something else that we work with very closely on with our customers, essentially to optimize that process and continually improve it over time. We also can help with things like configuration management, and we do that, providing tools and guidance. We can help with things like, for example, certificate management, because that has been an issue in the past, and we're working together with our customers to optimize processes around certificate management, and in fact, lifecycle management, just the general security of the product over its entire lifecycle. So there's several things that we do. Lastly, I think it's important, and actually just to refer to your report, which was an excellent report, the Latin American report. What struck me was that many of the respondents said they plan to do a lot more proactive testing into the future, which is interesting. I started my career in 1996. I'm showing my age as a pen tester, believe it or not, when no one actually really wanted much of that. But it's really important to us that products are tested before they go into the market. And actually, there's a unique feature which I'd like to share with you of our process, which is my group, the Global Security Office, has a veto right, which means that if we identify a security issue over a certain severity level in a product, we can say, no, that can't go to the marketplace. And that's something I think the respondents to the report could take on board as something to build into their testing process, because it's quite unique and quite powerful. It overrides R&D and sales and marketing, essentially, who are quite powerful, as you know, in any business. So that's a feature I thought I'd share with you.
That's helpful. The GSMA runs the telecommunication ISAC. It's a platform where mobile network operators share intelligence. We talk a lot about convening the industry, sharing information. Juan Carlos, what are you seeing as maybe some of the challenges around sharing information and maybe some of the benefits as well?
I do believe that we need to encourage to share information on cybersecurity, operational, tactical, and strategic information in order to be more prepared to face the new threats that are coming, in order to know their interest. If they have economic interest, political interest, in order to know their objectives. It's not the same you are a specific targeted in an attack or you are part of a global attack. In order to know their capabilities in terms of infrastructure, if they have 0 days, if they have cyber weapons. And finally, in order to know to understand their TTPs, no? Their tactics, techniques, and procedures, and basically the way they perform the attacks. But there are challenges. I think there are barriers to share information. There are three that's coming to my mind. The first one is conflict of business interest. If there is a provider of SOC or cyber intelligence services to their customers, they are reluctant to share this cyber intelligence information with their competitors because cyber intelligence is important, no? It's a competitive advantage. The second barrier or challenge is privacy. There is a entity, a company which share IOCs or operational intelligence, others can think that they are under attack, and maybe it's not true. And the third one is very important, asymmetry. In this kind of scenarios, there are some entities, some companies which share a lot of information because they want, they can, or they have the capability, and there are others that only consume cyber intelligence without any intention to share anything. And this scheme, this scenario doesn't work in the middle term, in the short and middle term. And how can we do? Which are the drivers? I think there are drivers of incentive, tax incentive, for example. Gamification is another thing that, at least in Spanish, has worked well. Trustworthiness, I think very important to build trustworthiness between the people who share, or the companies who share information. And I believe that including penalties or fines in regulation about notification incident is not the way to improve the information sharing.
That's quite helpful. I know it's something that we are always trying to improve within the GSMA and try and support our mobile network operators in doing. We're now in quite an IP-centric world. What are some of the challenges that we're seeing around that? Colm, you mentioned open source software vulnerabilities, sort of supply chain.
Yeah, so we're part of the supply chain, clearly. But obviously we have our own supply chain. And a big part of, in fact, any of these brands here behind me, any of these product manufacturers extensively will use open source components. In fact, it could be anywhere from 40 to sometimes even to 70% of a product is actually code that the manufacturer didn't write themselves. So there's a balance between, obviously, the usefulness of open source versus the questions that must be asked. So rather than focusing on the functionality and the features, the question is, well, who in this open source community will fix a vulnerability if one arises in this particular component? So there's, I think, work to be done across the world in product manufacturers to ultimately build a more mature and robust approach to dealing with these open source components. And actually, that's something we spent a lot of time and effort on and money in Huawei. We're just at the end, actually, of a 5-year program, a software engineering transformation program, and this was part of that. We spent, believe it or not, $2 billion on this over 5 years. Essentially, we've built a system that requires developers to choose open source components that have been approved and tested and so on. And I think there's more that we all can do in relation to open source and the security of open source components. And specifically, I would encourage any product manufacturers out there to absolutely participate in those open source communities, and we do extensively provide resources and people, because ultimately, where those components exhibit a vulnerability, somebody needs to put their hands on the code to address it and create a patch. And that's something I think in the context of supply chain security, we all need to think about and work together on.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about some of the measures that are being implemented in the ecosystem, Rebecca, what are you seeing?
Yes, well, there are a lot of things that can be done. I think we have to continue working in a strong national regulatory framework. This may imply also procedures, provide a good, solid national structure. We do have today here in Mexico the National Guard, who's doing pretty good, but a specialized national authority on cybersecurity could have more level, let's say, more resources, and this could be a good idea to promote public policy and the coordination that we need in our country. Then I think that we also could benefit from more investment in cybersecurity infrastructure and technologies, including what was mentioned before, the cloud solutions and security software. And I think that one thing that you mentioned, Samantha, and I would like to also mention is to continue building capacities and skills. I think this is the preventive part, and that we have to make additional efforts. A lot has been done, but we have to continue at all levels of education and with all population and in all sectors, and to create really an awareness of security so that people be trained and always know about the newest threats, because this is always changing. And I would add about this topic of the culture. We need really to tackle maybe we have to work on the culture and organizational resistance, but sometimes people are scared to learn, and I think we have to work on that. And of course, I would insist on collaboration, continue participating in international efforts in order to enhance our capacity to resolve, to understand, and to follow all the risks. And then one topic that I would add is that maybe we should also talk about, open the scope to include actions not only of cyber security, but also of cyber resilience. And this would need for some investment, and so that the productive sectors and everybody may have the capacity to resist and recover as soon as possible if a given attack is given or incident. And maybe one additional thing I would add is that I do agree that information sharing is an important thing. It's an important driver of international cooperation. And so I think this has to be promoted and encouraged.
Great. Marcos, do you have anything to add to the measures? Or?
As a top recommendation, I think that for me it's more like a general view is seeing cybersecurity as a business enabler. I think that sometimes it's not the way the people see that cybersecurity. For me is that should be like that. And also seeing cyber risk as another kind of risk that the company has. We are used to talk about labor risk or operational risk or financial risk or whatever. So cyber risk is another kind of risk that we should embrace, and we should deal with it every day, and should be part of our day-to-day activities. So for me, that's very, very important. And the other thing that I think we should put some efforts is to developing specialists or helping as a sector with the government and the academic sector to see how to develop or to have more specialists. There is a very important gap, skills gaps in the sector and cybersecurity. and Telco is not an exception. So we need to make sure that we have enough people to deal with this threat landscape that is getting more aggressive, more complex, and more disruptive every time. So I think that having more people with knowledge, even from the, how do you say, carrera from the university, so making sure that these people is prepared to deal with the threats in the organizations.
Great. What I might do is go through everyone and just ask to wrap up the session what your top recommendation would be to safeguard the connected future. Cole, shall we start with you?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting, actually, all day, and in fact, just all of the speakers have mentioned about kind of collective responsibility. I just want to share one thing to try and bring that a little bit to life a little bit, because it's a concept of shared responsibility. And what does it actually mean? Well, in fact, we have a regulator, an operator, a service provider, and a vendor, and an association all here together. And there's one really good example of that working, have worked in the past, that I would quickly share, which is the NISA SCAS assurance scheme for vendors. You already mentioned the mobile security knowledge base. And actually, that was a result of a global effort via GSMA and 3GPP, working with operators and service providers and vendors to produce this excellent scheme. And what's happened now, in fact, in Europe, as you know, I'm sure, is that the ENISA, the European Cybersecurity Agency, who are building a 5G certification scheme, have adopted NISA's.
Yeah.
So the regulators have adopted this, which was an industry-led and global initiative. And I think that's an excellent example, actually, of shared responsibility in action. And I think if I finish, that's what we should continue to do, because that's an example of it having worked really well, and we can do more of the same if we carry on like that.
Yes, in agreement. Marcos, what do you think?
I would like something that each time we are depending more on virtualization, and that's something that is part of the reality and the future. So I think that protecting these virtual environments is very important, because the attacker knows that if they go to this virtualization component, it's going to be an expansive attack. I mean, if you're, for example, in a hypervisor, you want to attack each server, it's going to take a lot of time. If you go to the hypervisor, it's going to be easier and faster and more disruptive. So I think that that's technological talking is very important. I will be making this recommendation to make sure that our virtualization systems are really protected. That's something important.
Great. Juan Carlos?
So let me give you 3 recommendations from my point of view. The first one is do the basics. Patching, identity management, hardening, zero trust approach to the basic to protect your company. Second one is bear in mind that we are under continuous attacks, so we will have incident. So do the basic is important to protect, but it's very important to develop the detection and response capabilities in your company. And finally, collaboration. Public-private collaboration, private-private collaboration, international collaboration. And in this battle, we are not competitors. We fight all together. And I always say that if you think that your company is going to win the battle alone, it does mean that you don't understand the battle and you don't know your company.
And Rebecca, to finish up?
Yeah, I would start with investment in human capital. I think that our countries need to invest in advanced technologies and specialized skills in the field. And this includes adopting innovative security solutions and training skills to have very good professionals in cybersecurity. Then I would work on the barriers, on legal, technological, the ones regarding the abilities and capabilities to regard information, analyze them, and react swiftly. And third, well, I would stay on the one I mentioned earlier, a strong national regulatory framework.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank you all for being on the panel. It's been a pleasure. And just so that everyone knows, you can actually enjoy some networking drinks afterwards in the exhibition space. Thanks to America Mobile. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.